Okay, we're working through some technical issues here.
Yes. Yes, they are. Thank you. Okay. This meeting is being live streamed via our portal, www.santa-ana.primegov.com/public/portal, and to YouTube, www.youtube.com/City of Santa Ana videos. If you'd like to provide a public comment, you may do so in the following ways. Join the meeting via Zoom. Enter meeting ID 898183300670. When the item you would like to comment on is being discussed, select the hand icon to let us know you would like to speak. You will be called upon by the name you entered. You can also join the meeting by calling 669-900-9128. Enter meeting ID 898183300670. When the item that you would like to comment on is being discussed, press *9 to let us know you would like to speak. You will be called upon by the last 3 digits of your phone number. After you are called upon, you may press *6 to unmute yourself. For those who are attending this meeting in person and would like to provide public comment, please fill out a request to speak form and turn it into the secretary. All speakers will have 3 minutes to speak. I will alert you when your time is up.
Thank you. And we'll move on to public comments on non-agenda items. Secretary, does anyone wish to speak?
If you are attending this meeting in person and would like to comment on non-agenda items, please fill out a request to speak form and turn it into the secretary. If you are participating via Zoom and would like to comment on non-agenda items, please select the hand icon and unmute yourself. If you are calling in and would like to comment on non-agenda items, please dial *9 and then *6 to unmute yourself. I will wait a few seconds. Chair, we do not have any speakers.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to the consent calendar items. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from May 9th, 2022 at this time?
Do we have a quorum to approve the minutes? I believe
Yes,
Commissioner
for-
McLaughlin was not here.
Oh.
I'm sorry, if you actually review the minutes and you review the video of the meeting, you can actually participate.
I move we approve the minutes since I was there, I think.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Wu and a second by Commissioner Ramos. Madam Secretary, can you please make a roll call vote?
Commissioner Alderete, Commissioner Calderon, Commissioner McLaughlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramos,
Aye.
Commissioner Wu,
Aye.
Vice Chair Pham, Chair Morrissey.
Aye.
Motion has been approved with Commissioner Alderete, Commissioner Calderon, and Vice Chair Pham absent.
Okay, thank you. Madam Secretary, are we certain that the other commissioners aren't going to be here today? Did they phone in or email? I can hold the excused absences till after if we.
I was
We
told that Commissioner Alderete may be coming late. That might be a possibility.
Okay.
Actually, all of them have been excused, Commissioner Alderete, Calderon, and Vice Chair Pham.
Okay, so I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the excused absences of Vice Chair Pham, Commissioner Alderete, and Commissioner Calderon.
I make the motion.
Second.
All right, We have a motion by Commissioner Wu and a second by Commissioner Ramos. Can you make a roll call vote, please, Madam Secretary?
Commissioner Aldereti, Commissioner Calderon, Commissioner McLaughlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramos,
Aye.
Commissioner Wu,
Aye.
Vice Chair Pham, Chair Morrissey.
Aye.
Motion is approved with Commissioners Aldereti, Commissioner Calderon, and Vice Chair Pham absent.
All right, thank you. And we will move on to the first item on the agenda. That is the capital improvement plan presentation. That's item being presented as a general plan consistency finding for the fiscal year 2022-2023 capital improvement program. And Mr. Kenny Nguyen from Public Works Agency will now provide a brief presentation.
Thank you. So good evening, Chair and Commissioner. I'm Kenny Nguyen from Public Works Agency. For tonight, I will go through our proposed 2022-2023 capital improvement program, also known as the CIP. So in general, CIP is a fiscal document looking through all our capital expenditure for a given year. And this one is detailing the fiscal year 2022-2023, which will start on July 1st of this year. So this is part of the budget adoption. So once after the Planning Commission meeting, they will continue on with the budget as approved by City Council. Once approved, it will become the budget for next fiscal year. So as you could see right here on the front slide, these are some of our highlight projects from this that we complete in this past year. On the top left is the Civic Center by Boulevard. We installed some traffic calming feature along that Civic Center. Next to it is the main library children patio. On the bottom left is the brand new basketball court at El Salvador. And further to the right is the bike lane, the new bike lane along Flower between from Warner to Civic Center. So this slide is detail our funding source for this upcoming 2022-2023 fiscal year. So the first one in the local fund is the SB1. This one was the additional gas tax approved by the state in 2017. This is one of the main funding source for the street improvement. And the next one, like highlight on here, is the drainage or some general fund that we've been used for some of the smaller scale capital improvement program, especially for facility. And the next two, drainage and transportation fee, are like charged to new development to kind of offset some of the drainage and transportation project in the city. The next three, sewer and water, are like, based on our water and sewer department to the bill to collect funding for our water and sewer improvement. For the grant funding, the ARPA is the federal stimulus as emergency fund available to state and local. This one is become available to us starting with this fiscal year 21-22. Active transportation program is the grant funding that focus on increasing safety and mobility for non-motorized users like bicyclists, pedestrian. Measure and fair share is from OCTA, is one of the funding source for a lot of street traffic and maintenance program. The next one, CDBG, is one of the main funding source for park, facility, and street improvement. On the next slide right here is an example of one of the summary page in the CIP book that is available to you and also online. This slide detail all the project funding source and the amount and different type category of this in the CIP, like for roadway, traffic, park, facility, utility. So in there, you could see the summary, and next to it, there will be individual project on its own page in the CIP book. Okay, it's usually we post this on the city part of the city CIP. I mean, it's part of the budget. So if you look on Santander budget, the CIP is part of that document.
Should have been also attached as an exhibit to your staff report.
Thank you, Fabiola. For fiscal 22-23, we have about almost $45 million with about 42% for allocate for street improvement. A little bit over a third is in park facility improvement, and the remaining is for traffic and utility improvement. It was about $20.5 million in street improvement. Some of the highlight project are the 9 arterial improvement along First Street, Grand Avenue, McFadden, Standard, and these are usually funding through the SB1 that we mentioned earlier. We also fund 2 local residential street area. One is Asphalt Street and one is Concrete Street. These are funded through the CDBG and the Measure and Fair Share. And we also continue to receive the solid waste impact fee to fund the local non-residential like industrial commercial area. For traffic, to highlight some of the traffic improvement include the 2 new bike lane projects along Ray Street and Santa Clara that are accounting for 8 new miles of bike lane to the city. For traffic signal, we also continue the traffic improvement along Euclid and citywide location. For public utility and drainage programs, some of the highlight project is we plan to do about 4,000 additional new sewer line and also 10,000 linear feet of new water line citywide. We also start planning on the new sewer lift station at Maxine and McFadden. We also going to improve upgrade the sewer facility at the Northeast Annex area nearby Tustin. And for water, we also start improve the water facility in the Willard neighborhood area. Right. One thing for the roadway, I forgot to mention that we plan to pave 19 miles of street. We will improve, also repave 8 alley, and we will do over 200,000 square feet of sidewalk for the street improvement. So I forgot to mention that. For the city and park facility I just want to highlight is we plan to do improvement at the New Hope Library, and at the Santa Anita Park, we will plan to add basketball court, new lighting, new irrigation, and landscape for that area, also expanding the parking lot. So with the $45 million for this upcoming year and the current ongoing project, we will total about over $169 million for citywide, with about almost just less than half go to city facility park and almost 40% for street improvement, and the remaining 15% for traffic and utility improvement. This will conclude my presentation. So if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. I'll bring it back to the commission, see if they have any questions. I'll start with Commissioner McLaughlin. Do you have any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Wu, do you have any questions?
I have a couple. I know that the city is not doing the streetcar, but what portions of the other things that the city has to do along with coordinating with the streetcar that we can do to accelerate completing it? The streetcar cuts through about 3 or 4 different neighborhoods, okay? And these are the lowest income neighborhoods. And for years, they have not gotten their fair share of dollars for park improvements and alleys and street repair lights and those things. So I'm kind of looking at the two relationships to see if in this budget, we are finally getting those things that were promised over the decade by previous administration. And if any of those have not been fulfilled, can we fulfill those first? Because they were promised in the past allocation. But I don't have a tracking mechanism to see which one have been fulfilled and all that. So I was wondering, does Public Works know of what those things are, or are they in touch with neighborhood association that will tell you?
So as part of the OC streetcar, we are still working, coordinate with OCTA to kind of like finalize the construction. And at the end of the completion of the construction, then we will need to sit down with OCTA to have a co-op agreement to establish some of the responsibility for each agency. I will bring this question back to our manager and will provide the correspondence to you.
Yeah, because the dust, and the noise and the inability to park because it cuts through actually the last residential neighborhood. I remember some 30 years ago when I came, we were afraid of the encroachment from the civic improvement coming down towards Artesia Pilar to Santa Anita. And we just want to make sure that the last time freeways or transportation priorities took place, we lost a lot of parts of Logan. This method of using transportation to cut in the neighborhood, that I hope that we're consistent with our general plan, which put a priority on neighborhood integrity, the people that live there, maintaining open space and providing a livable space for families. And I'm not criticizing or attacking you. I have my mask on so you can't see. But I was hoping that as we prioritize, we evaluate the budget uses, we take this into consideration.
Yeah, as I said, I will bring this question back to my director and will provide the correspondence to you.
Mr. Ramos, do you have any question? I'm sorry, Commissioner Wu, was that your only question? Said you had a couple questions.
No, I defer.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, hi, thank you for the presentation. I have a question on 2 of the projects that would be funded, both in the Willard neighborhood. So one seems to be work on the sewer and the other on, I believe, a main water line.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if either of those improvements are supposed to help with the drainage of rainwater.
So for the sewer and water, those are separate from the storm drain improvement. So storm drain is a different type of funding source. The water and sewer are like sewer is mainly from the sewer water. It's not from the street storm drain. But to let you know, we have a couple years back, we have finalized, update the drainage master plan. And we have been actively pursue grant funding to improve our drainage. I mean, drainage is one of the critical improvement that we have identified, like to minimize our flooding, especially on the south side of town. A lot of water draining from the north side coming down. So we have been successfully for a couple projects so far, and we still always look out for additional grant funding to upgrade the drainage in the citywide, as you know, to meet with the drainage master plan recommendation.
Thank you. So on a pie chart there's a pie chart. So of that 10% for utility drainage and lighting improvements, what percentage of that would be for drainage?
So so right now, of that 10%, I had to look into detail, but I would assume that most of them will go to water and sewer, because we have our own water and water and sewer facility, and funding through those usually fund a lot of them. We've been able to. There's some agencies that have called for project for drainage in past couple years. So there's currently, we slowly, as I said, like we have 2 projects that we've been going to upgrade in the area, and we apply for a third one, like nearby Russell area. So that 10%, I would, to my knowledge, most of them is actually toward water and sewer, and a very small percentage to drainage. Once the upcoming call for project, and if we get awarded, that amount will be increased.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions for now. And I'm sure you're aware, but drainage is really bad throughout the city, and the Willard neighborhood becomes its own river when it rains. So
yeah, so let me go back to our NPDS program to see if we could do some of the because we have a contract, like a few times over throughout the year, we come in and clean out the catch basin to help like unclog some of those things to help the drainage flow a little bit better. So that is one thing that we have seen, like slight improvement in certain area. So let me bring that back to our NPDS manager, and we will be able to see what we can do in that area.
thank you. Yeah, that'd be great. If there's any small work that can be done while some of these other projects are happening in those specific neighborhoods to help with drainage, that would be great.
Yes,
Thank you.
we'll do that.
Thank you, Commissioner Ramos. You have no further questions right now? All right.
No further questions for now. Thank you.
Thanks. I have a question on involves what Commissioner Wu mentioned, and also water adequacy with all the additional units we're constructing around the city. I was wondering if you could talk about how we're increasing or how we're dealing with that in terms of capacity, and in light of the recent declaration of a drought, how that will impact our water supplies.
So let me go check with our water manager on that topic, because I know that recent drought, we have a citywide, we have to implement that new automated system to tracking water usage to see, to help the resident and business to kind of like keep make sure that to use efficiently. But let me go back to see if there's any additional program that they implement to help out with the drought concern.
I notice there's a couple projects. There's well number 32 rehab and a Washington well site improvements. Are those meant to increase capacity? I don't know if anyone from engineering's here that can confirm that, or.
Yeah, so yeah, those additional water well facility improvement, those are additional water production that we are looking into. Yes.
Okay, thank you. The other question was regarding our urban forest. I didn't see anything in here specifically dedicated in terms of funding for maintenance or upgrades to the urban forest. I see street improvements, and Is that included in the street improvement?
So
Package.
part of this CIP capital improvement is mainly for the capital expenditure. But a lot of our maintenance expenditures, usually part of the budget process, they would not list as a capital improvement program. So you wouldn't see a lot of these funding identified in regard to maintenance in here. But I could go back and discuss with our budget manager, and they could be able to share with you what the budget allocate for maintenance effort.
So that is a part of this budget, the urban maintenance of the urban forest, or it's not,
No,
it's not. Okay.
This one is focused only capital expenditure, like
Okay.
actual capital improvement project.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner McLaughlin.
I've got a number of questions. First of all, when you look at some of these street improvements, for instance, improvements to mitigate the traffic or speed and everything else. I mean, there's a great example of that on Santa Ana Boulevard down by St. Joseph's Church, where the postperson for our neighborhood was run over. And then they put in the roundabouts, and that's made a tremendous difference. There's other parts of the city that are looking for those same roundabouts, but neighborhoods are being told that they have to wait for a grant to come through. Are we putting all of these mitigating situations on grant, or are they going to be funded in some way through the budget?
So as detailed beginning, the main focus for non-motorized, like to improve safety and mobility of pedestrians and bicyclists, is mainly through this grant funding active transportation program, the ATP. We have been successfully, more than all the city in the Orange County combined in the last round of call for project. And for this time, upcoming is due in next couple of weeks, is we are applying for another 20 grant application to improve safety for both bicyclists and pedestrians in the city. So some of these are including narrow down the crosswalks so that the pedestrian doesn't have a long path to cross street, both in local street and arterial street, a bigger street. So just to get back to your question about the funding. So from public work, we rely heavily on grant funding for our improvements so that we use minimal amount of general fund and other, general fund to our capital improvement program. So that's why a lot of our project identified in the capital improvement program is mostly, as you could see, is from grant funding, especially like related to mobility and safety of pedestrians and bicyclists. And we are very active in that. Is not just ATP, but some of the OCTA funding we are applying to is also part of those improvement for pedestrian and bicyclists and like non-motorized user mainly.
But what are we accomplishing in a given year? Are we accomplishing 50% success or 40% success? I mean, some people have been there's been discussions on certain areas that at 2, 3, 4 years old. I mean, I know back about 15 years ago, we had an extra section of the median added to Flower Street. It took 4 years to get that done. And then the only way we got it done was the neighborhood had to pay for it. City didn't pay for it. And so I'm just saying, is the same ground rule potentially there at this point in time for roundabouts or anything of that nature?
So far, a lot of roundabout and what they call it, a bulb out curb extension to narrow the path for pedestrians. So far, we have installed most of them are through grant funding that we have been successfully applying for. And for because there's certain funding source is kind of being constrained for a certain type of improvement. So let's say if there's a call for project for street pavement, then you could only applying that and receive that funding to focus on street payment. But like for the ATP, pretty much most of them are safe route to school or like relate to safety and mobility kind of improvement. You cannot use that for like mostly like storm drain or anything like that. So certain kind of grant funding, they focus on certain type of improvement. And we have been, I would say, like the most active, the leader in the whole, both Orange County and LA County.
But again, my question is, are we accomplishing 40, 50% success in a given year? Or is this one of those things that each year it just gets a bigger number, a different number? And, you know, it doesn't seem like we're actually making progress because we're just not getting the expected funding we want to get, and it's taking us time.
So part of the funding program is actually we call it we had to go there and analyze the improvement.
Right.
So let me go back to check some of our recent report to see what type of improvement and any percentage, and I would be able to get back to you on that data because I currently don't have that data right now.
Okay. My next question comes down to, we just signed off the general plan. And if you look at the general plan, we have thousands of homes that are being put forth, apartments, buildings, and everything else. We're in a drought. What's being done differently to accommodate this situation or to remedy the situation so that we don't have lack of water at this point in time? And you mentioned the storm drains. I mean, there's some cities, as I understand it, that they're actually closing off the storm drains so that the water doesn't go to the ocean and it stays in the water table. Are we doing something like that in order to convert in order to conserve on water usage?
We actually do some of that for some of these. It depend on the type of soil. Like certain area that we were able to, what they call it, these kind of facility that kind of like collecting water and process that for the surrounding irrigation kind of stuff. But that had to be depend on the type of soil. Not all soil will be able to be accommodate that equipment. So like, let's say for down south on Warner and Main Street, those projects, as part of that, I know that they will install some of these units so that they collecting water and they store in there, and they part of that is to the water irrigate the surrounding landscape area. So that is part of that process. But let me go back and check to see if there's additional improvement that we could do, as you mentioned, that could like keep the storm drain water and recycle certain way. I'm not aware about that, but I will go back and double check and get back.
We're doing some of it now.
We do, yes.
Because we've got water that's being put into the water table. You see it in Santa Ana River. They bring the water off the dam, and then the water just sits there and drops through the sand and goes into the underwater table. But I mean, that's for a small amount. I mean, we've got some large demand being put in here from a building point of view, and I don't see the connection with what we're going to have for electricity, gas, and anything else to hook up to these different projects.
Yeah. So as I said, like I'm not familiar with any technology that would be able to recycle some of those storm drain water. So that's why we'll go back and double check, and we'll provide back the correspondent for you.
Right.
Yeah, I'd ask you forward that to everyone on the commission. I think that's an important point in terms of adequacy in conformance with the new general plan, that we have a plan in place to I think it's up to us to recycle at this point to provide adequate water resources for, the growth that we projected.
We'll do.
Remind you, as part of the general plan, the environmental is something that they take into account. What is the growth, the envisioned growth? And every water purveyor is required to produce, I believe is every 5 years, the urban water management plan. And that's when those calculations are also provided. And so that's something that was also reviewed as part of the general plan to accommodate the growth that is envisioned.
Well, I guess the point is that in the capital improvement plan, is that because we have a 7-year projection included, are those calculations carried through into the capital improvement plan?
Certain project do have some of those, as I said, they depend on the funding constraint and also the type of, environment to be able to provide that type of water recycle kind of technologies too. Because let's say for, certain type of funding, they limited on that type of improvement, then we wouldn't be able to use that kind of funding. But as I said, I will go back and discuss with the other manager to see what type of funding out there that would be able to address some of the concern that the chair and the commissioner have tonight.
That answer your question, Mark?
There's answers. I'm not sure. Does it answer it? Not until he gets back. But
I guess a comment I would have relating to the image you showed of Santa Anita Park, and it's throughout the city. The city's been working really well with a consultant, to really enhance those park areas, really change the conversation about the play areas and make them more active and useful to people who use them. So I think the city's done a great job there with those.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
What I hear in the discussion over there is being consistent with the general plan and the goals. And that is that we're putting environment first and livable neighborhoods. And when you start working on the capital improvement for traffic, does that traffic improve the quality of life, or are we creating super highways that encourage us to use of gas cars? Okay, or is the capital improvement for the sidewalks and through the neighborhood making it more walkable as an investment and more accessible for persons of disability? Our low remnants properties that can be developed, are they being developed in such a way that they can be used as open space without the use of water? Because there's plants and rocks and other sculptures and exercises you could put there. So I think in terms of comprehensively looking at the improvement, because you get a lot of input from the neighborhoods, there are neighborhoods that lack the voice. They don't hold meetings, so you might not hear from them. I would try to reach out to those neighborhoods like Willer and others that are unserved. So what I think I'm hearing though, is that as you spend these money, because we have the money available, we're kind of looking behind it if it's also consistent with the general plan to reach those other goals, because we have some really specific goals under that. And some of it is also espoused in the Park and Rec plan. So all these things are coming ahead, and now it's your turn.
Understood. I mean, to assure you, I mean, our capital improvement program, the requirement is had to be consistent with city general plan. Or we cannot move forward with a project that will be in conflict with the goal of city general plan. And to answer your other question, we have 64 neighborhoods, and our public work teams have been very active in attending a lot of these neighborhood meetings to gather feedback before the CIP project budget and all stuff, we usually gather a lot of input and feedback. So as you see, like those ATP application that we applying this year around. We actively set up meeting with the neighborhood, with the surrounding school, to find out there's any safety concern. Is there any challenge for like pedestrian and bicyclists? We gather those in for this lot of workshop that we've been hosting citywide.
Yeah, and I see that you've been on the agenda and you're on a field that is coming up. But how do we track that? How do we hear back from you what the solution is? You know, a decision, you know, that we heard from the community that traffic is a problem, and the major arterial traffic is being displaced into the neighborhood. Or when do we hear whether you did anything or you utilized the budget? How will we hear that?
So we have some, I say, because some funding requirement, we have to have analyzed the pre-construction and post-construction result. And some other project, we also need to, like, let's say if we do widening or we do road diet, we have to analyze the traffic impact for the surrounding community before we implement that project. We wouldn't be just say, okay, we coordinate with other, you know, part of the community to see what they're concerned. So like, for example, like Bristol or Warner widening, a lot of people feel like, okay, you know, doing construction, potentially some people might cut through to those smaller streets. But after construction, then usually it improves so that people could, you know, bring the traffic back into the main street so they don't want to cut through the local street to impact those things. But that is part of the traffic study that we have done for those type of projects that we analyze before project, during construction, and after project. What are the improvements? So the project had to improve certain measurement, like let's say it used to be, but not anymore, is like they measure like traffic is level of service, or like other thing like relate to mobility. As I said, we tracking that to see like more people are using the like bike lane or not, so that we those are the measurement that we have. So we have some data like that we would be able to share if you have certain specific location or corridor or any type of thing. And if we have anything, we will be able to share with you on that.
Yes, Commissioner Ramos.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Commissioner McLaughlin as well. I do have a question on something that you actually just brought up, which is the Bristol Street Improvement Widening, the Phase 4. So I'm looking at it and I'm wondering my first question is, what is the purpose of the widening?
So part of the widening is the purpose, like I know that we established a while back, is right now, as you could see, you driving northbound along Bristol, like south of Warner, up to Warner. And so the segment between Warner to Edinger is narrowed down to 2 lanes. So that become a bottleneck. So part of the widening, we have all the necessary right way to widen the street. So we just need to coordinate with OCTA because they have a plan, what they call it, the center line street. Like they have a plan to have a streetcar going through a center line. So they still analyze that. So that's why they lay out widening a little bit. But the goal of that is there's a few things, including safety first. So definitely right now is we will have protected bike lane. That means that there's a bike lane with a buffer so that they could go through pretty much the whole Bristol corridor once it's complete. And the second one is make sure that, you know, any location that doesn't have enough width for especially people on wheelchair or like even parents on stroller, they would be able to widen the sidewalk so that they have accessible route for them to go through. So those are like the goal and objective of that Bristol corridor is to beautify, to improve safety, and also part of that is to kind of like improve the bottleneck through of traffic through that area too.
So how many lanes would that phase 4 area be?
Will be similar to the southern portion, and the northern portion south of Warner and north of Edinger will be 3 lanes, the whole corridor. So once it's complete, that will be all the way to pretty much 17th Street. That's our goal. So there's 2 phases of Bristol. One is between Warner to Edinger, and the second one is from Civic Center to Washington. That's a 2 last piece that once we widen, and we will be all 2 lane from the south city limit up to 17th Street. Up north of 17th Street is the future phase that we need to do that in the future.
Okay, great. So I'm glad to hear that you'll be incorporating bike lanes that are protected. Because
Yes.
I know it seemed that before the goal was just to widen the car lanes, but
Mhm.
you mentioned that the goal is to widen narrow sidewalks and add the protected bike lanes. And on the topic of bike lanes, so I know that the plan also includes a bike lane on Santa Clara from Lincoln to Tustin.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if those are going to be protected bike lanes as well.
So bike lane protected that we try to install when it's feasible. So let's say there's a lot of like driveway approach, those segments, it would not be efficient to install the protected. We will protect in certain way, but not the raised buffer, because if we stop and go, that's actually is not as safe, because also collect debris, and also like folks that coming out with trash can and stuff, it will be hard for them to pick up trash. So like there's several projects that we have bike lane like along McFadden and Standard that going out to construction next year. You will see that certain portion that is not as feasible, like too many curb opening them in too many driveway along there, that it would not be feasible or efficient to install protected. We protect in like wide buffer, but not like a hard raised median for those. So it depends. We analyze during the design to make sure that it provides safety, but also make sure that it's efficient so that like people when they come home, they drive in, they would not run over these kind of curb, because if too many like raised buffer in between.
Okay, and I asked because I know that on the stretch from Grand to Tustin, when you're traveling east, there's a lot of car parking along that side of the sidewalk. When you're traveling west, I'm not sure if parking is allowed on that street, but you don't really see it.
No.
So yeah, so I was wondering what it looks like on where if you're traveling east, what happens to all those parking spots, especially in front of Portola Park, and before the park, there's a lot of cars that park on that street. And that's also a stretch of street where cars speed, because there are no stop signs, there are no stoplights from Grand to Tustin. So if the bike lane isn't protected, I just don't know how often it'll actually be utilized. And if it's unutilized, it would be a shame, because it would be a nice connector to the Santiago Trail.
Yeah, so part of this bike lane, we analyze in pretty detail. Like parking is always premium in Santa Ana. I mean, every community meeting that I attend, I think parking is always the most concern. So part of this bike lane project, we plan to install bike lane, but still try to keep at least keep it the amount of parking, or like even add more parking, or like McFadden. Like certain location, we have to eliminate bike lane, but we will add bike lanes somewhere in the corridor. So it's always a positive gain on parking, because parking as one of our main goal in addition to safety. So for that Santa Clara, we are still in the early stage of design. So we still need to analyze the existing condition and what's best to provide a bike lane and also safety, and also to try to minimize any parking impact in that area.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sure that you'll be working with the neighborhood associations in that area to also get their take. And then my last question is just on the Santiago Creek pedestrian bridge improvements. Just what do those improvements include?
So, and you could see right now that pedestrian there's some safety concern. It's really overpush. So we're gonna go on there and pretty much kind of like analyze and see if we could salvage any portion. If not, then we pretty much the brand new pedestrian bridge in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Is that the bridge at the end of Baker? Is it Baker? There's.
Yes.
Like,
Like,
yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you for doing that.
What portion of the street? Baker?
Oh, it's on the schedule for the pedestrian bridge at the end of Baker, crossing the creek.
Yeah, crossing the bridge area.
Are you ready for a motion on this?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify one thing. I noticed the 7-year plan did not include, that's an OCTA, so it does not include water at this point. So I would still like to get follow-up on our water adequacy issue, but maybe it's worth another presentation in terms of, how we're dealing with that in light of the drought and all the additional units and the increased capacity, and just get an update on that.
Will do.
A couple quick ones.
Okay.
Just from a process point of view. So tonight we're having this presentation. We are voting on this presentation from an approval, recommended approval or disapproval type situation. Is that correct, Fadi?
Yes, that is correct. You're you basically adopting a resolution
Right.
recommending council.
And when does this go in front of council?
On the first June meeting would be June 7.
So essentially, we're not going to have time to get any feedback. I'm assuming we may get little or no feedback at this point in time. And our meeting is the second week of June. So we've given you our concerns and comments, but we're going to get, the process will have passed everything.
Right. Well, the comments that you have provided and the information that you are requesting are not related to the capital improvements that are in front of you today that are included in the capital improvement program. For example, you're asking what water reliability for the envisioned growth in the general plan. That is not something that is included in the capital improvement program. So that's information that maybe someone from the water department and public works can come and provide a presentation about their urban master plan, what they look at.
Well, there has to be some linkage between the two. I mean, to have none it seems impossible because you've got supply and demand.
Well,
So-
you're here for what Kenny is providing is basically the physical improvement
Right.
that will be conducted, or what is envisioned in the program for those physical improvements, as well as the budget and where the budget is coming from. And so that's what he's bringing forward to you, to the commission.
Okay.
But the motion, the resolution that we are going to vote on, saying that we have reviewed that the allocation of those budget amounts, and we find it is consistent with the general plan, right? And we're making this and forwarding this regulation, resolution to the city council. Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
But our commissioners have found some things that we need some more question on, or it's buried somewhere in the details. And it goes to the consistency with the plan, because some of those things may not be consistent with the plan.
right.
Is that right, Mark? Is
Yeah,
that where you're
that's-
going?
I mean, that's the basis, and some of the answers may not be either. So I mean, that's the question. It's just process, like I said, just understanding process. But I mean, what you've mapped out, it is what it is. I mean,
Well, so our goal tonight is present what we are proposing for the
Right.
upcoming fiscal year.
Right.
So some of your concern and question are like applicable to citywide program about the water,
Right, but if I'm going to talk to the council member who I represent,
mhm.
and he's going to sit there and say, I'm going into a meeting in the first week of June, what's the story with respect to the CIP? And, there's a long laundry list that I think we've presented, and it would be nice to be able to get some feedback on that laundry list. Okay, that's my question. That's my comment.
Chair and Commissioner, if I just may interject, the question before you tonight has been stated is whether the CIP is presented is consistent with the general plan. That's the question before you tonight. To the extent your questions relate to a lack of consistency or something you see that is not consistent, then I think it would be helpful to clarify that to staff in particular. But if your findings are that it is consistent, then that's the staff recommendation, is to approve it as such for the next step at approval of the city council meeting.
That's fair.
Some of the questions may or may not relate to consistency, I think, as we've heard tonight. But to the extent they do relate to consistency, I think would be helpful to staff for you to identify exactly how.
Okay. I have one last question.
So in the broad stroke, we could say the allocation of the resources in the broad stroke is consistent. However, in our finding, we like to call attention to the following area as an addendum. Is that what you're saying?
Well, is there time to get that to the council? There's no time to get it back to us.
Right. So I got one last question.
Yes, Commissioner McLaughlin.
Okay, so the one last question. We've done all this asphalt, work on the streets, and I mean, there's only one other person in this room that I think can remember what went on. That's probably Tay. Yep. And everybody touted the fact that the city had come up with this revolutionary process that saved money on putting the asphalt down and everything else. Great. But now all we have at traffic intersections is washboard. Bumpy parts of it starts at the light and goes back however far the traffic goes, maybe about 100 feet. And, navigating through that kind of stuff is pretty tedious on some streets.
Well, we like to have what you guys have in Fuller Park, because I understand that your street is a little better.
Well, I'm just asking, like, what the OTCA has done is put concrete pads in to avoid that problem. Is anybody looking at what needs to be done to take care of this washboard? Or is it just going to be, when we get to it, it's all part, but because we haven't put the asphalt down, we haven't re-asphalt the entire city at this point in time. And that's probably been about 15 years. And we definitely have not done the concrete in complete.
So I'm also in charge of payment management program. And we have citywide of the 425 miles, I would say around only about 12% of the city is concrete. The reason that we don't put our concrete down is a few things. With the budget that allocate for payment, if we put that down, the cost of concrete is about almost 3 times the cost of asphalt. That's one. So we will be able to achieve the number of street that we could do annually. That's one. And two, the deterioration that you're talking about at the bumpy, yes, I acknowledge that happened at a few locations. So that caused by a few potential issue is one is when they rolling the contract, when they roll down the street, do they compact enough? That's one. And two is the mixture, when they mix that asphalt, do they mix it correctly? So with the stop and go at some intersection, not many, on a few intersections, yes, that bumpy has occurred, and we have coming back and kind of like try to address that, because based on like certain paving requirement, we have modified some of our specification to make sure that to minimize that issue. Do you have a street in mind that you're thinking of?
Fairview and First Street, you can go look at that one for one. But I mean, you say there's a small amount. I disagree with you. I think a small amount is maybe 10, 15 streets. I think there's probably 20 to 30 streets if you go through the city that start with, and if you go further and just look real close, you'll see more. And no due respect, but I've been involved in situations where, you know, when you have a compact weight put into one area, which is called a tire to the asphalt, you're going to get some depression. And you've got that going on, and and the streets that have more trucks coming down it, more buses coming down it, those are the ones that are going to have this issue. And I just don't see anything being done. And some of the streets are pretty nasty when you come through them, especially when you come through the light screen and you can go right straight through. You go through this bumpy patch, and it can damage your car.
Yes. So I said, we do the inspection every 2 years, like citywide on inspection. I will go through our inspection report and see what I can do to address those issues.
You know, everybody has said the cost of concrete is more than the cost, 2 times what the cost of asphalt is. But at the end of the day, I'll submit to you that the streets in our neighborhood that have concrete haven't been replaced in 40 years. They have not been replaced in 40 years. And the fact is that I submit that the asphalt that you've got probably has been changed a couple of times. And so the math doesn't calculate out in my book. And everybody's set a percentage, but it doesn't calculate. I just think something has to be done to look at that, because it does have problems with the city and traffic. Just an opinion. Okay.
I have a follow-up on something I thought you said. Did you say we have 400? How many miles of roadway?
425 miles.
425 miles. And the budget this year, how many miles would we be
We will
repaving?
pave 19 miles.
19?
Yes.
90.
19, yes, 19, 19.
19.
20 miles?
Oh, 19. I was really happy with 90.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think I read a lot of things, you know, streets should be repaved probably on average every 20 years. So
Minimum, yes.
yeah. So we should be doing 5% of our roadways every year, right? So I think we're falling short by quite a bit.
Well, people are staying at home, so you're using the bathroom a lot, yeah.
Commissioner Ramos?
Yeah, I have I think what would be my last question. So I heard that we're to vote on this tonight so that it goes to the council on June 7th. June 7th will also be the first reading of the budget.
Yes.
So does this have to go in line with the timeline for the budget?
So this is part, the CIP have been part of this budget adoption. So they have gone hand in hand in the past. So they will go on as
Right.
part of the first reading too.
Right.
Okay, thank you. And just, I asked that because just hearing some of the comments from fellow commissioners, I think in the future, it might be helpful if we get this item earlier, so that if there are additional questions, we wanted to bring it back, we can, and not having to like feel this pressure, because if we don't, it's not going to go in line with the budget timeline.
I mean, this is truly just a rubber stamp at this point in time.
Yes. So in the future, we will
Lori.
plan to bring earlier. In the
We move it forward with our concerns. We could definitely note that in the motion.
Alan was ready to make a motion. Alan? Can I make a friendly amendment that says anything that has been brought up in the discussion and in the recording of this meeting? So that we capture all the questions? Okay,
If I may suggest, if you're going to adopt the motion to adopt the resolution, it will be better if you summarize what the concerns are instead of just having a resolution basically saying, just capture everything what we just discussed. So the way that Commissioner Wood, that you were summarizing it, it will be greatly appreciated.
Let me paraphrase what I think I heard from you, is that I'm asking to adopt the motion with some amendments in terms of the concerns that each of the commissioner had to be included in that motion. So when we adopt the motion, those concerns will be added to the record of the resolution, including
Water, we have water conservation,
Right.
sewage treatment,
the drainage and the
or
Willer area.
drainage adequacy.
Right, and ensuring that the OCC card, our portion of whatever is fully funded and implemented as soon as possible with less negative effect about all the neighborhoods along the path. And is there anything else?
Asphalt
Oh,
replacement.
the asphalt, yeah. And because I know that several neighborhoods are asking, why can't we have the concrete that you have in your neighborhood?
safety mitigation, is that, I mean, that kind of brings into
Yeah,
play, it brings in the bicycle lanes, it brings
Right.
in the roundabouts,
Yeah.
brings in anything that has to do with safety.
yeah, and I think in the budget, it did include those safety feature in their bike path plan. If I saw the original plan on the transportation bike lane, so it does. So we just re-emphasizing that.
Well, Commissioner, what I'm hearing is that the motion that you're making is one with comment. I believe I heard you say amended motion earlier, but procedurally, the proper measure would be to approve with
comments.
With comments
Right.
on those matters you just enumerated.
Right.
So just to repeat the motion, we have a motion to approve the capital improvement plan with comments regarding water conservation, drainage adequacy. Did we have a specific area on that you were concerned with, Commissioner Ramos?
Yeah, the Willard neighborhood.
Willard neighborhood.
Safety and also the use of
Pedestrian
concrete
bicycle safety adequacy.
and the use of concrete in the streets.
Asphalt replacement adequacy. And use of concrete. That's 5 items. Do we have any others?
I think that covers enough. It's,
No, I think that covers it. I was just wondering, I don't know if it would be appropriate to add it as a comment, but just this concern with the rushed nature of this process. I know it's public record and on video, so I don't think it has to be mentioned, but just want to remind us of that.
Councilmember, could you clarify that comment? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't pick that up.
Yes, just the rush nature of the commission having to review the capital improvement plan and approve it today so that it can go to the council next meeting to be aligned with the budget timeline. So that was a concern that was shared. I'm not adding it to the motion as a comment. So I said it might not be appropriate to add, but I just wanted to restate it so that we're all reminded of it.
Thank you. And I think
Of course.
staff has noted that concern as well.
Thank you. All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner McLaughlin. So we have a motion from Commissioner Wu and a second from Commissioner McLaughlin. Madam Secretary, can you make a roll call vote?
Commissioner Aldereti, Commissioner Calderon, Commissioner McLaughlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramos,
Aye.
Commissioner Wu,
Aye.
Vice Chair Pham, Chair Morrissey.
Aye.
Motion approved by majority with Commissioners Aldereti, Commissioner Calderon, and Vice Chair Pham absent, with amendments to include concerns addressing water conservation, sewage, drainage, displacement of traffic, asphalt and use of concrete, and safety mitigation.
The motion was with comments. not
Just as a
amendments.
correction, those are not amendments, those are comments.
Right. Thank you.
I got just one question out of a side question
Okay.
with respect to,
Go
we
ahead.
were talking about the Bristol widening. One, I thought that north of 17th was pretty much, the body had been declared dead and, time of death was 6 years ago or 2 years ago. Somebody said that we were not going to see that happening at this point in time because there clearly wasn't funding to do it.
Correct. Right now, we do not have the funding to do that, but that's still part to be consistent with general plan. The Bristol Street need to be a major arterial, which is 3 lane in each direction.
It was supposed to be 3 lanes, so you could feed into the freeway at Levita, at Bristol and Levita.
Yes,
That was the intent.
correct.
But they also stated a couple of years ago, OCTA said that there was no funding that was going to be there from Measure M.
I haven't heard about that comment, but right now the missing piece, let's say everything will be complete with the upcoming 2 phase of Bristol. There's still a missing segment between 17th Street to Santiago Creek. That's the only piece that will be 2 lane in the whole Bristol corridor. Everything north of that and everything south of that will be 3 lane. So part of the environmental document and also the specific plan, they calling out for Bristol will be 3 lane pretty much all the way through.
3 lane to Santa Clara or
Yes.
3 lane to the entry to the freeway.
But what right now from north of Santa Clara all the way to the freeway is 3 lane.
It is 3 lane.
Yes, it is 3
Right.
lane.
But then it bottlenecks down at Santa Clara to 2 lanes.
Correct. So any portion between 17th Street to around Santiago Creek, that's the only portion that 2 lane right now.
Okay.
Well, there is a problem because if you live in the neighborhood of either Riverview or Floral Park, and if you were to Google getting out of there, it takes you up north on Bristol, and there's 2 freeway access there. There's the 22-5 and the 557. So people are being encouraged to use that now because that's the thing, not to turn left to Bristol, catch the freeway on Fairview or the entrance near the block.
Yes.
So you're driving traffic up there. And my concern is, although there's no school kids there on Santa Clara and Bristol, there is, because the kids in our neighborhood cross across that to go to Santiago. kids are let out at Mendez. And
Yep.
they're all over the place.
Right.
And then you have Santa Ana College there. So the northern portion of Bristol is highly with traffic. But if you go farther south, even down south, you got Modern Day, you got elementary schools up and down Bristol too. So I kind of question why we're making a super freeway when there's also a pedestrian path during certain hours. And then I don't know if that contributes to the traffic during the later hours, people getting off work, trying to avoid, the north or south situation. And that's just an observation from driving around, and we still have a problem with people ignoring stoplights.
Well, they did actually put in a new stoplight at Bristol and Santa Clara within the last 6 months, Tay.
Not that anyone pay attention to it.
Well, the one that says that it has a left-hand turn
Yeah,
from Santa Clara out onto Bristol is a left-hand turn.
but it means nothing.
That's new.
Well, it should.
Yeah, it's new.
Let's, we can,
Right, Tay? It's a protected left. Yeah. Oh, son of a guy. Yeah, but you still know everything
I
about this.
still
though.
know it.
You're a wealth of information.
So in terms of our agenda, we do not have the work study calendar today, or we? I
That is
have it on my
correct.
agenda here, but
That is correct. It has been postponed
okay,
to allow the other commissioners to participate.
okay. So we'll move on to comments, which we were just having. So are there any other comments from commissioners?
The only comment I would like to put out here today is that over the weekend, there was a service for Ann Andres, who was a very large contributor of many different aspects in Santa Ana. She ran for mayor against Miguel Polito about 10 years ago. She's been a lawyer. She and her husband own the Green Parrot on Main Street, and she passed away about a month ago, but the service was yet on Sunday. So I'd like to close this meeting on behalf of Ann Andres.
Thank you, Commissioner.
That's it.
Have any other comments, Commissioner Ramos?
Yes, just one comment for anyone that may be watching online. I just want to remind residents that they can still apply to join the lottery, to join the wait list for Section 8 housing vouchers. So the last day to do that will be May 31st at 11:59 p.m. So you still have a few days, and I believe there are organizations that are assisting with that. So if that's something you need, or anyone else, or anybody that you know needs, please look into it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that information. Commissioner Wu, do you have any other comments? No. I'd just like to thank staff for the presentation today, and would like to see a future presentation on our plan to deal with the drought and water supplies. Those are my only comments, and I would like to ask staff if they have any comments today.
I have no comments.
Okay.
Thank you.
And no further comments.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to close the meeting in honor of Miss Ann Andres. And our next meeting, we'll adjourn to our next meeting, be held Monday, June 13th at 5:30 p.m. here in the Ross Annex building. Thank you very much.